Welcome everyone to the Liverpool Daily News. I am your host for this morning, David Comerford, and I'm joined by the Liverpool.com editor, Matt Addison. And Matt, there's only really one story we can discuss today, and that is the release of the VAR audio from the Luis Diaz non-offside at the weekend against Tottenham. I think it was around sort of 6:30 last night that it became public. We believe Liverpool had access to the audio beforehand, and then it was released into the public domain after a couple of days of pressure from Liverpool. So first things first, what was your instant reaction when you listened to it?
I think it was probably a little bit different to a lot of people's in that was exactly what I thought it was going to be. It's exactly what the PGMOL statement said it was going to be. So it was absolutely no surprise to me that that's how it happened. It doesn't make it any better. And obviously to hear exactly how chaotic the process was and to sort of hear the steps that they went through is no consolation, I don't think, in terms of what happened and how monumental an error it was. But it is exactly what they said it was going to be. I think they probably should have brought the footage out a lot quicker. I know a lot of people have said, fair play to them for putting it out earlier, but you could have put that out by the end of the game. To be honest with you, it didn't need to be so far delayed. Even just a day or so later, it didn't need to be that long. So I think there's definitely benefits to putting it out there, but like I say, I was in no doubt that that's what it was going to be. We've heard it. That's what it was. It doesn't make it any better. It doesn't make it any worse for me. It was just exactly what I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, I think Jamie Carragher made the point on Monday Night Football that essentially as long as the delay goes on, the less confidence people are going to have in kind of the material that comes out and just generally the PGMOL. But I think listening to the actual tape, you can tell that that's not been doctored in any way or nothing's been airbrushed or anything like that, because really it does paint a picture of total chaos. And I think it does, questions have to be asked about competence, I think, listening to it, because it is just, completely frantic. I think off the top of my head, there's a moment where one of them says wait about 4 times and just panic sets in basically across the VAR room as they realise what's happened. If I had to ask you, Matt, having listened to it, if there was one change you would make to VAR in light of what's happened here, whether that's kind of the implementation of it or how the checks are done or anything like that, what would it be?
Still the same as what we spoke about on the Blood Red podcast earlier this week. People have spoken about it at length in terms of how we can sort of clean up that process. And I think that probably became a little bit more obvious when people have actually heard the audio. I think that was what I was expecting, where there's a lot of voices, there's a lot of panic, like you say, there's a bit of chaos, there's people talking over one another and not really having a set instruction. I think Dermot Gallagher said it the other day on Sky, where you do need to be as literal as you need to say the on-field decision was, this is what we've seen, now the decision is goal or no goal or whatever. It has to be that you go through the process, and the first thing is you confirm what's happened. The next thing is you confirm the process of going through it, where obviously what we've heard with the audio, I'm sure like me, you've probably listened to it a few times. Every time you hear it, you kind of just, you're staggered really that something like this hasn't happened before. I think that's the biggest thing for me, is that you've got to clear up that process. It's got to be very, very clear and easy, even with so many different voices and so many different people. I take the point that some people have made that they should have just gone against the protocol. It was clear that they've made a mistake. You can hear from the reaction of Darren England that he realises pretty much straight away, it's too late. By the letter of the law, it's too late to go back, because I think Tottenham, to be fair, did it almost every time. As soon as the referee blew the whistle, they took that the set piece and very quickly, with all the restarts, they were back playing the game. Obviously, that wasn't anything to do with trying to avoid a situation like this, but it did obviously help them in the end. So I think that there's a point to a degree in terms of that it has to sort of just go against the protocol. Someone, I can't remember the guy's name who's saying it, who's orchestrating the camera for the VAR, says basically, are we all right with that? Can we not, stop the game, or can we not delay? I can understand why people would say on this occasion, go against the protocol, just do that. I think it would be a lot harder to actually do that in practice for just someone out of the 4 or 5 voices that we heard, for someone to say, yeah, we're going to do that, and the others would then have to agree with them. Again, the process is a lot more difficult than just someone can just go, yeah, let's just go against the protocol. I think under that pressure and under that scrutiny, it would have been difficult to do that on top of the other errors that you've got, because it is a very clear protocol. The issue for me is not that the referees didn't go against the protocol. The issue is the protocol. And that's kind of the learning that we've got to take. So for me, it's just a case of cleaning that up, making it a lot more straightforward, clearer language, more decisive. Maybe take your time a little bit more as well. They were very, very quick to go with that. And maybe there has to be a situation where the VAR isn't the only one that says check complete. Maybe it has to be they say that and somebody else who's alongside them has to say that as well before you start the game again, just so you've got that extra layer of security just in case something like this happens. But I don't think, there's a couple of comments there saying, what can Liverpool do? Nothing really. The only thing that we can do is hope that something like this doesn't happen again. Hope that the lessons can be learned. It's tricky for Liverpool, and obviously there's a great deal riding on this. But I just don't see anything other than what they can do with put out the statement, make sure that the scrutiny, make sure that things change, and hopefully in the future something like this doesn't have to happen again. But yeah, it's not going to make it any easier, but I think that's the reality at the moment.
Yeah, I think, again, looking back to what Carragher was saying, he made the point that they would have been saluted for showing leadership if they'd, say when that ball goes out for the throw-in, if they'd stopped the game and said, you know what, no, we need to award that goal, we need to show a bit of common sense. And it is all well and good saying that, but that's just not really how it works. The reality is that for sporting integrity reasons, these things do have to be followed to the letter of the law when they're in place. And obviously there's a lot of scenarios where that's a good thing. And in this one, it does look like a bit of a straitjacket. I think the solution, like you say, Matt, is to change the rules to allow, if there is a serious VAR error, for an instant correction as opposed to an apology afterwards. That isn't really going to make a huge amount of difference. And Tim Buckley in the comments says, all they have to say, offside or onside. And really it is kind of that simple, because, if he'd said to the on-field official, the goal's onside, then the problems are reversed. But it was that it was, check complete, got passed down. And it's strange in a way, because I think when we previously seen, Howard Webb's mic'd up shows, one of the things that has kind of struck you has been the sort of the clarity of the communication and how they are quite detailed. But maybe there's a few scenarios where they cut corners a little bit, particularly this one where it looks like a fairly obvious onside decision. Maybe it's like, oh yeah, we don't need to get into it in too much depth. But then obviously in this case, it backfired because it was maybe a bit too simple. Just to finish off then, Matt, I mean, Liverpool have released that quite punchy statement a couple of days ago in response to what had happened. They've had the VAR audio released. I mean, it feels like a bit of an unprecedented moment because, we've had the VAR, audio released before on that Howard Webb show, but we've not necessarily, certainly to my knowledge, had a moment where one club has pushed for one incident to be released kind of immediately afterwards, almost on their own terms. Will this be the kind of thing that leads to a new precedent where if a club is at the end of a VAR error, they can kind of have that transparency, in the public domain within just a few days?
Honestly, I don't see a reason why that shouldn't be the case. I think they have set a bit of a precedent now. But I mean, if it was me, decisions, all of the big decisions every weekend, whether they're right or wrong, even if the ultimate thing, and I think there was one, to be fair, on the mic'd up episode that we saw with Howard Webb, I think one of the decisions was a correct decision, and he kind of talked through the process of how they got to that being the correct decision. I think that helps in terms of explaining the process, showing that they don't just make mistakes, they do actually make 99.9% right decisions as well. That would be what I would do is every Monday you go through, and Howard Webb and Michael Owen or whoever it's going to be, they go through the key decisions of that weekend. You hear the audio, that gets people on side in terms of killing these stupid conspiracy theories of the world is against a certain team because every fan thinks that about their team. I think if you're transparent with this incident, why not be transparent next weekend with whatever the big issues are? Then there might be games that you don't need to go through. Maybe there just aren't any that you need to talk through. But most weekends there's going to be something one way or the other where it might be a little bit contentious. Why not just make that a weekly thing that you go through? Everyone knows that it's coming. The referees know that it's coming, so that probably puts them in a bit of a sharper focus as well. I'm sure the process might be a little bit clearer if Darren England is going to sit there on a Monday and have to listen to himself back. Maybe that just sharpens their minds as well, because they know that it's going to be made public. Everyone is aware of it. I just don't see a problem with that. I think if you don't do that, it kind of looks like you're hiding something, even though you're not. It just makes the whole thing a lot better, I think, if you make that a regular thing. You clear things up, you explain the process to people. You probably also just make referees look a little bit more human as well. I think I've never been in favour of a referee coming out after the game and having to do a match interview or speaking to the press and explaining the decisions and things like that, which people have suggested in the past. You can only sort of say, as a referee, I gave that because I thought it was this. And if it wasn't, well, it wasn't. There's not a great deal else that you can say other than that. But I think with this is an opportunity to kind of just remind people, really, that these people are real people. They're doing their jobs. It's under intense pressure. I think if you can kind of hear that process and we get into a habit of doing this, and it's not just a monumental error and then it happens. I think if you do this regularly, it just helps the whole process, really. And probably, I imagine the referees will probably be in favour of that. Obviously, can't speak on behalf of them, but I don't really see an issue with that being the case. So, look, it's one of those things. Maybe you do it for a few weeks and people get bored of it and we don't have to talk about these things anymore. But ultimately, we do have to find ways of improving the officiating, and I think that might be one of them.
Yeah, and I think accountability is really important. And like you made the point there, Matt, if people know that what they're doing, even if it isn't broadcast live, if there's a chance that it could, filter out afterwards, then I think that is something that holds the referees to a little bit of a higher standard. Hopefully that would have a positive effect. But yeah, we will leave it there for this morning's stream. Thanks very much, everyone, for tuning in. We'll have more reaction to, obviously, the VAR controversy on Liverpool.com today, and also some content previewing the game against Union Saint-Gilloise tomorrow in the Europa League. So make sure you check our website for that, and we'll be back tomorrow with another stream at the same time. So yeah, have a good day.